Hi guys, welcome back to Infinite Possibilities, the podcast where we explore the lives of amazing people, their choices, challenges and opportunities. And today I have a very special guest, Chris.
Thank you, Karen. Looking forward to it.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, it'd be good.
Yeah, and so what is your 1 minute introduction to people when they first meet you?
My 1 minute introduction to people when they first meet me is, hello, how are you? What are you up to? I tend to ask lots of questions about them, to tell you the truth, Karen, because I'm generally interested in other people. But then if people ask about me, I tell them that I've been into the fitness and sport industry. I'm very passionate about that, and I like training.
Yeah, that sounds good. And CEO of Fit Education. You don't like saying CEO?
Not really. No, I'm just another person like everyone else, and I don't like that sort of segregation of roles. If I need to take empty the bins, I'll empty the bins. If I need to sweep the floors, I'll sweep the floors. If I ultimately CEO means I'll have to pay the bills. Yeah.
That's true, but that's a pretty good attitude to have, right?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, otherwise people treat you different, right? Maybe.
Yeah, I'm the same as everyone, and I suppose what I enjoy is we're coming up to Christmas and everyone's about to go on holidays, and I end up doing everyone's job while they go on holidays, and I'll keep the business going. So I think that's good because I get to stay grounded and see what's happening within our business, and if there's things that aren't working as well as they probably need to be.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I love that humble attitude.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll get right into it. So I just wanted to go from the beginning. So in high school, what kind of child were you like?
At high school, I was into sport. I loved swimming, actually. Swimming was my sport of choice. I would, and I also enjoyed soccer. And I wanted to be an architect when I was at school. That was what I was training for. I was smart academically, and I think what my sport taught me, swimming in particular, was to work hard.
Yeah.
What I liked about swimming was that when I went training, I could see that I got better. And if I did more training, I got better by more. And so I think that was a really good life lesson for me. And that I then applied that to my school as well. And I was fairly smart at school. I was dux of chemistry and maths
and so good.
Things like that. Yeah. So, but I think it was the sport that was the learning. That if I worked hard, I could get better or do stuff. I don't think I was particularly talented at anything, but I worked hard.
Yeah, damn. Yeah, and what about in terms of personality-wise? If I were to meet you when you were in high school, what would I get?
I was quiet. I was a pretty quiet kid. I had good friends. I was fairly popular at school.
Hey.
I think it was sport. I think sport was the thing that brought popularity at school. I suppose I was academic as well, and so I generally got on with everyone at school, but I wasn't out there. I wasn't party type boy. I was more very conservative and quiet, and did the right thing. I was a good boy at school. Yeah, I was a good boy.
That's cool. So, if you're really into sports, how does one think that? How did you think of architecture as a career? Because it's quite sedentary, compared to being really out there and active.
Yeah, my parents' dad was an architect, so I followed in his footsteps, and often when I was studying or on school holidays, that was how I earned my pocket money. I'd go and work for Dad on the weekends, and we'd go and measure up blocks of land and survey stuff, and then I'd help draw stuff, and so I helped Dad out through school, being I suppose a drafts person, and then thought, well, that's it. I want to be an architect, and I suppose that was a motivator at school as well, in that I needed good marks to get into architecture. So I worked hard for that, and went to uni to study architecture. So it was Dad that was the influence though for my architecture.
Did he also explicitly say that he wanted you to be an architect?
No, my parents were great. They didn't push me at all. They said, as long as you're happy, you can do whatever you want. And yeah, I was very casual and relaxed when I was at school. I think Mum referred me to, if he was any more laid back, he'd be horizontal, is how I used to, they sort of call me. So yeah, I went with whatever was going, and they would support. I had great parents, they supported me, or have great parents, they support me in whatever I do and helped me out do whatever I needed to do. So it's lucky.
Yeah, beautiful parents. Shout out to Chris's parents.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so at the time when you were helping your dad, were you enjoying the work? What was it? What did you find interesting about it? Maybe.
Yeah, I enjoyed the accuracy of it. I think that was it was all hand then, so you would draw stuff on the drawing board, and I enjoyed the accuracy and the drawing aspect of it. And I was good at I suppose at school I really enjoyed graphics as well.
Yeah.
So that was that type of that accuracy and drawing, and I did enjoy that, and that was probably one of the reasons I did architecture as well.
Yeah, and what about in terms of sports? Did it ever occur to you that you wanted to have a career in sports per se?
Good question, Karen. You're asking me the hard questions. Yeah, it was. I was when I was at architecture, so I went through architecture, and while I was doing that, I was still playing sport because I loved it. I was doing swimming, and after swimming, I got into triathlon, which I loved. I loved triathlon. And as I was doing architecture, going through that, I was still doing lots of triathlon. And then when I graduated from architecture, I realised when I was sitting in an office doing the bad jobs, the crap jobs you could call it, I realised that, hey, I want to be physical. And I remember going to Mum and asking, hey, Mum, I don't know what to do. I'm an architect. I've studied for 6 years, and as I wasted my life, I want to be into fitness. And again, Mum was great. She said, "Oh, you can do whatever you want. You're still young. Off you go." And at the time, I remember the uni debt was a big consideration for me.
Yeah, it's a heck lot.
Yeah.
We'll be paying it off for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
Yeah. So that was that. She said, "No, don't worry. Go and have a go. Why not?" So off I went back to uni and did exercise science. And at the time, that's when I had dreams of working with elite athletes and going to the AIS or something like that. However, the journey didn't follow as per plan. But yeah, I got into sport and fitness, which was great.
Yeah, that's cool. So I want to go a little bit more into the architecture. So during those 6 years, so it was at the end of the 6 years, you decided that you wanted to change into the exercise?
Throughout, it was so I went through architecture, and while I was at uni, I was active at uni. I stayed at college at the University of Queensland, but I was going to QUT for architecture. And then for the last couple of years of my degree, you had to go work experience.
Oh, so it was placement.
Yeah, so you did one day of uni, and then you worked at a firm for the other 4 days. And while I was doing that, I was getting right into triathlon, and was getting fairly successful at that. Through to when I finished, when I graduated, I was then working at that same firm for another couple of years.
So you did work as an actual architecture for a few years before changing?
So I worked for a couple of years as an architect, and then that's when I had a conversation with my mum, teary conversation with mum. What do I got to do? And mum, as mums do, give you good advice.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, just also want to talk more about what was it like studying architecture? Did you enjoy the process of studying it?
Oh yeah, I like studying. Yeah, studying, and that's what we're into now, is educating. I quite enjoyed learning and improving. I think that's I enjoy challenging and improving myself. So I did enjoy the architecture. I suppose the first year of architecture was particularly about being creative.
Oh.
So you had to learn all sorts. It was not what I was sort of expecting. Straight lines. It was a lot of creative thinking and problem solving, and I'm really grateful I did that, because I think that's an important skill, is problem solving and thinking laterally.
Yeah. And also, like, at one point in time, I also had my dreams of being an architect.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I did. But I also did graphics as well in high school. But one of the things stopped me was, like, each time I had to design a new house, I had no, like, original ideas. I just kept plagiarizing on the internet. So how does one come up with new designs? Do you have some original ideas flowing, or?
At the now that I 20 years on from that, yeah, I think that I have good creativity, and yeah, I've regularly come up with crazy, far-flung ideas of businesses throughout my life that I've tried to implement that haven't worked out. So, and I put it down to that getting my brain thinking a bit creatively at uni, and I think that's continued to develop over time as I've done other things. I think that creativity's been expanded, and so I think it's a really important skill, and I'm really grateful of studying that at architecture. And it's interesting to hear what you say as well, because at the start I was very before I did a lot of that creative stuff, I enjoyed the simple lines and wasn't as probably creative. Yeah, so we did all sorts of things. We did life drawing, we did lots of problem solving, had to put all these collages together, and it was right out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
But it was good.
Yeah. Are you still a good drawer to this day?
I can draw. I'm probably not a good drawer. No, yeah. But I can. If I have to put a plan together, I think I could still put a pretty good plan together.
That's cool. And when you say you did 6 years of architecture, so is it like how much is the undergrad, and then do you have to do a master's, or how does the system work?
We had to do. So it was split into a Bachelor of Built Environment for 3 years, and so you could exit there if you wanted with a Bachelor of Built Environment. And then it was another 3 years for your Bachelor of Architecture. Yeah. And those the second lot of 3 years was 1 day of university and 3 days of work placement. Yeah. And so you got your hands dirty. You were working. I was working in an architectural firm in Toowoomba, and I suppose that also broke me in that we were doing one of the big projects was a hospital, and because I was the new kid or the prac student. Intern, I got to do all the stainless steel sinks in the hospital and do all the details on that, and it wasn't what I'd imagined of architecture, and so that might have been contributed to when I went and said, "Mum, I don't want to be an architect anymore."
Oh, that's interesting, because it was only up to that point in like the 6th or 5th year when you started to doubt yourself. Like in the first half of the degree, did you have any sort of doubts running through your head?
No, I was an architect. I was going to be an architect,
really?
Designing amazing buildings and making the world great.
Yeah. I mean, it is pretty satisfying if you design something and it got built.
Oh, exactly.
It looks good.
Exactly. I've got a few little projects, but nothing as grandiose as I'd imagined when you see architects on movies and in magazines.
Yeah, and because like you said, like in the 5th, 6th year, designing sinks a bit boring. But did you think that like, maybe I should give it some time? Like, obviously they're gonna exploit my labour. Not quite the current, like the correct terminology, but did you think that like, hey, if I stick it out for like 2 years, like I'd get some cool projects, I'd be designing what I want?
Probably, I'm always a positive. I'm always a glass half full type of person and look at the bright side of life. And so I always thought there was going to be opportunities there. I don't know if I had a big plan in terms of where I was going to be as an architect. I suppose I just wanted to design buildings, and in my firm that I was working at, I was getting more opportunities to do those things, but I suppose they were few and far between, and probably not what I wanted. As well, one of the bosses there wasn't the best people manager, you could say, so that probably contributed. But down deep, I think there was also a desire for sport and activity, and I suppose architecture at that time was also moving from pen and paper to a lot of computer.
Yes.
And very computerised, and so I was sitting there on AutoCAD
Yeah.
drawing
Fun times,
stuff.
I remember.
Yeah, so AutoCAD. Yeah, and I didn't mind probably didn't mind doing that, but probably didn't want to do it all the time. I wanted to use some creative skills, and I think computers back then didn't allow you to be as creative as they probably do now.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because I was thinking Chris, do you think you could have been happy just doing architecture, but you had all your you had sports as your hobbies, right, at the time, so technically you didn't necessarily need to transition into full on into sports. You could have that. Sometimes people say that if you have a hobby, don't make it your full-time work, because it can really sort of kill the joy per se.
Spot on. No, I wanted to represent Australia in triathlon at the time. That's what I wanted. So I was in the morning I'd go swimming or bike riding or something like that. I'd be up at 5:30, and then I'd I'd ride my bike into work, park the bike in at work, do my architecture, and often sneak out for a run at lunchtime, and then go back and do some more work in the afternoon, and then after work I'd go for some more training. And so that was it. I was
and that wasn't
keen
enough?
for triathlon. That was it was, and I was more than happy doing all that stuff. And that's why one of the reasons I got into learning more about fitness was because I wanted to find out how to get better at sport, how to train smarter, how to become good at training. And it was that. So while I was doing all of that, my mum was also teaching Cert 3 and Cert 4 in fitness.
Ah, perfect.
So that's what. So I went and did my. It wasn't Cert 3, Cert 4 in fitness at that time. I was a fitness leader. So Mum was teaching fitness leader. So I went and did fitness leader, and that allowed me to be a gym instructor, which was great. So when I suppose when I went back to uni for the second time, that's how I paid my way through, as I was working as a gym instructor.
Oh, that's cool. And how did you find the work of a gym instructor? Did you enjoy it?
Great, yeah, hands-on, yeah. And so I was studying a Bachelor of Exercise, or Bachelor of Human Movements it was at the time, and working as a PT down at the gym in Jindalee, and it was great, and plus doing my training for triathlons at the time as well. Yeah,
and if you had to choose between the two, would you rather be training or teaching?
Would I be training or teaching? Well, I like training. Yeah, training's especially when you get to train with your mates. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's cool. And just wondering, how hard was it to go back to uni for the second time?
It was it required a lot of thought, a lot of courage, and there was a lot of thinking involved there, and that's why I consulted Mum, who gave me the advice, don't worry, off you go. And I remember one of my lecturers in architecture gave me the same advice. As long as you've stopped studying by the time you've hit 40, it's okay. So I grasped that.
That's so cool, because I would have expected him to say what is it that you don't like about architecture? Maybe we can fix it, maybe you should branch in this field, but he just kind of put his hands off and then just let you go.
Off you go. And he was, because at the end of architecture, you asked a question before, how did the architecture course go? We had to do a thesis at the end of it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And I did my thesis on property, how to make money in architecture was what the thesis was. And the same lecturer I'm just talking about, he was my supervisor.
Yeah.
And in short, it was do your own property development is how you can make money in architecture. Yeah. And that was his advice as I was going, is as long as you've stopped studying by the time you hit 40, you'll be fine. I think that's good advice. And I suppose looking at where I am now, it's good to think that lecturers and some of those casual quotes that they say have an impact on your life.
Yeah, you should thank them one day.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That would be cool, right? Yeah, and then so how did you find the degree of studying, what was the full name?
Human movement studies it was, It's now exercise science, and it was great. It was, I suppose getting your hands dirty on physical exercise, and one of the great things was going into the anatomy labs and looking at all the cadavers, all the dead bodies.
And did it scare you for the first time?
I wouldn't say scared. I was probably intrigued about what's going to happen in here, and there was a smell. They preserve the bodies with the formaldehyde, so there's this terrible stench as you go in.
Yeah.
And it was they were hard subjects because you had to. The exam was they had all the cadavers lying out on the bench. And you went through, and there was a little pin in a certain part of the body, or a nerve, or a.
I get ya.
And you had to go and on your exam, you had to go and list what it was.
Wow.
And that was. I do remember that was a hard exam to pass. So lots of study went into that. But it was one of the best learning experiences that I've had, and it was the practicality, and that's what I do now is all about. It's the practical learning of doing stuff that it reinforces everything.
Yeah.
And so seeing one of the lasting lessons that I had from that anatomy class was when I saw someone who'd exercised for their whole life versus someone who hadn't exercised, and the cadaver.
Yeah.
And so the person who had exercised had these big, strong bones. You could see with strong attachment points on where the muscles attach on. And they had big, strong muscles and not much body fat around. And you could see strong tendons and strong ligaments and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas the person who hadn't exercised, had really weak bones and had a lot of body fat around it, so you could physically see it, and that was something that stuck with me and still sticks with me, and I still teach in my classes is exactly that, the benefit of exercise on your body.
Yeah, that's crazy. It must be quite confronting to see the stark difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, damn. And then so after finishing the degree, feeling pretty good about yourself, what's happening? What's running through your mind in terms of careers?
At that time, I still wanted to be involved in elite sport.
Yeah.
I wanted to be training the Broncos or down at the AIS training the triathlon team. That was after I'd represented Australia at triathlon. I wanted that was my So
Whoa, so
that was in it.
You represented Australia.
I did represent Australia at triathlon, just at an age group level.
Yeah,
and so we went around to a number of world championships around the world, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And I went and competed at there's an Accenture series around Australia, which was really good. And so I got to race all the best triathletes, definitely in Australia and around the world, which was amazing.
Yeah, and where did that fit in your timeline? Was that during your second degree, or?
Yeah, that was second degree. So when I was, I was probably crazy. I was training in the morning, go off to uni, do off to PT, running a PT job, and do more training, and sort of juggled all that together somehow. And in hindsight, I was
burnt out.
Yeah, well, not burnt out, but I probably what I teach now is recovery, and I didn't give myself the best shot by doing too much. But I'm probably a better coach as a result of it, because I've done all the dumb things, and so I can tell others
don't be
not
like
to do
me.
it. Yeah, don't do that. That wasn't the smartest idea. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, and then so once you graduated, did you instantly go looking for a job? And what kind of jobs did you look for?
Well, that's a good question. So while I was continuing to study, I sort of realised that jobs at the AIS and Brisbane Broncos strength and conditioning were few and far between.
Yeah.
And as I was investing more time into triathlon than probably my study, my grades weren't as good as they probably were when I was
doing
younger.
architecture.
Doing architecture. And so I realised, well, maybe I'm not going to make the cut, and so I transitioned to I'll be a PE teacher.
Yeah.
So I did the extra studies to become a PE teacher, and that's what I ended up doing at the end of that Bachelor of Human Movements. It was a specialisation in education, and so I went and became a PE teacher, and I worked out at Forest Lake and Woodcrest College at Springfield Lakes, which was great. And while I was doing all of that, I had good PT business over at Jindalee, and kept on doing that as well, and that worked really well. It was busy, and I was still training at the time as well, doing triathlons.
Yeah. Oh, wow. You really keep your life really full.
Yeah, I enjoy the physicality, and I always think, even now, I still have to train. It makes you healthy, makes you if you're not training.
Yeah, that's cool. And what was the experience of being a PE teacher, like teaching kids? I'm sure there would have been a lot of gamification, and how you teach adults would be quite different. Yeah,
I think keeping it fun was very important. Keeping it fun, and you had to look at the group of students you had in front of you and what was motivating them, and they were the practical kids who probably weren't suited to English and maths and the academic subjects. They're the ones that were in PE, and typically I suppose bad kids at school, they're the coolest kids in your PE class because they're being active out in the oval, and so I had really good rapport with those kids, and I'm still friends with some of them really out in the world, and I've got good stories about a lot of those kids that I taught, and I could quite easily still be a PE teacher. It was a great job. Yeah.
And did you find like there were some students that like didn't want to exercise, that didn't like, or maybe felt embarrassed? So how do you sort of help those kind of students? It's good. And I was just telling a story to my class in here today, my PE teacher class, about one of my favourite clients, LL, Lovely Lyrian, it's short for the PT clients this is, and the experience that she had in PE. And I teared up actually as I was telling this story, and I'm not ashamed of that at all. But so Lyrian came to me, she got sent to me by the doctor, and she had a bad experience in her PE class, which basically stopped. She then avoided exercise for the rest of her life, and she deconditioned and detrained herself that she couldn't do life anymore. She struggled to get up out of chairs and struggled to get up the stairs and just do life. And so she was looking at going into needing a carer, and she wasn't old enough. And so the doctor said, well, Lyrian, you've got two choices. You can get a carer, or you can go and do something about your fitness. So she went and joined the gym. And luckily we had a mutual friend who said, well, go and see Chris at the gym, which was nice. And so Lyrian left her home to come to the gym for that first time, and she drove halfway there, drove home again, drove to the gym, sat in the car park until she built up the courage to walk through the front door of the office, and I could see she was petrified. She was quivering and shaking and absolutely petrified. So Lyrian, I could see that. So at that time I had hair, blonde curly hair, and so I wasn't, I didn't sit across the table. Didn't sit across the table like this sort of that scary gym instructor. I tried to make it as comfortable as I could for Lyrian, and we chatted about all the things in Lyrian's life, and I did a little bit of exercise, and anyway, I suppose where that story goes is Lyrian trained with me for 15, 20 years and turned her life around so that she could do the things that she wants to do. So she went over to see her grandkids get married in Hawaii, and she never loved exercise, but she would come to the gym religiously 2 or 3 times a week, and she helped out around the gym. So it was that, I suppose, relating that back to the question you asked about how did you motivate the unmotivated kids, I was very aware of exactly that. Lyrian had a bad experience in class at PE, and so she avoided exercise for the rest of her life. That's crazy.
So the fun factor was always important in my classes, and and also the energy. You needed to, as a teacher, you need to provide the energy and often get involved and have a go with that, and you need to understand where some of the kids in your class are coming from with why aren't they? Why doesn't that kid want to train today? And that, again, there's so many different factors that are at play when a kid's at school. Who knows what else is happening in their life? So you need to be very aware of that. And again, I go back to my uni and the things that I learnt there. I had fantastic teachers who were really good at developing that, and and learning. And so I was very aware of trying to talk to every student in my class and understand and develop that rapport.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, and then so you taught, was it high school or was it primary school?
High school, yeah. So I was a PE teacher and I also had science. And so typically taught science. They typically gave me the dumb. They'd give me the rugby science class. Yeah. So I quite enjoyed doing a bit of science with the rugby team as well. Yeah. And we again was try and make it practical and make it as fun as you could for those students. They were never going to be scientists, but they still needed to learn the basics of that. Yeah. Well, I've just finished reading a book called Range, and one of the things that it talks about that I really agree with is that in education, and it sits well with my training philosophies, that the more someone struggles in something, the better you learn something. Oh. So if you, and this is, I think that my education, I studied hard when I needed to have an exam. I studied hard, and so a lot of that information stuck with me, I think, and I probably struggled with it, but it made me learn it. And so one of the things that I'm aware of, I suppose now as a teacher, is that if you give kids the answers, if you make it too easy, then they're not going to. You might get instant gratification at the start. Look at my class; they're doing really well, but long term, they're not going to be or get as much out of it. So I think there is a line there between having all fun and games and actually setting some targets and some challenges and making kids follow through with hitting those challenges and targets. And so there's a balance there. It's a balancing act.
Yeah, it's so hard to design a course where there are people of all different ages, and like when some levels are higher, and how do you sort of find that like middle ground of like, oh, this should give them enough challenge but shouldn't be too challenging, but it's not too easy when you have like a class, or do you like separate them into like further categories of, I don't know what you would say, like medium, high, low?
Sounds like you've got it all sorted there.
No.
Okay? Yeah, you've got it sorted. There's a number of different ways. You can either pair the better students with the not so good students. That's one way.
That?
Yeah, and you can get the better students to help the not so good students, or you can, like you said, pair the better groups together and the not so talented groups together. It all depends what you're trying to work at. I think you've got to set, and when you're setting goals, if you set the goal too easy, people get bored.
Yeah.
If you set the goal too hard, people
give up.
So an 80% mark, if you have where they get the thing, achieve it 80% of the time, then you're about right. And obviously, if you've got people with different abilities, everyone has a different 80%.
Yeah.
And so it's about, again, I think that the key to success here, and it's probably looking at your last question as well, is building that rapport with your class and the people that you're working with, and understanding why they're sitting there.
Yeah.
And that's what's good about PT and teaching, is you're dealing with people, and working with people and understanding that, I think is very rewarding.
Yeah. And do you sort of cap the classroom size at a certain level?
Not really. If someone wants to study and learn, I'm happy to try and work it in. Once you do get classes too big, you start to lose a bit of that rapport.
Yeah.
And so that's where, I suppose, in my current position, we get two teachers on to just split the class into two.
Yeah.
And so I don't necessarily like to say, no, you can't do something for someone who wants to do it. It's probably about facilitating at the top end. You don't want a class that's too big. And it's because you lose that personal contact.
Yeah, it reminds me of university lectures.
Oh, how many do you have in there?
I think they can be like, I don't know, 50, 60.
Yeah.
There is just like a lot.
And you never build that rapport with your lecturer, do you?
Yeah. But it's kind of like a one-to-many relationship sort of thing. Yeah.
And I think that's hard. That one of the hard things with online learning, which is where it's going now, is this. One of the keys, I think, to successful online learning is going to be how do you keep that rapport and that relationship with students.
Yeah.
That's probably another podcast.
Especially when you can't see them.
when you can't see them. So I think however that online thing works, it needs to cover off on that.
Yeah, that's cool. And then after PT, like being a PE teacher, like what happened next?
So I was working at Woodcrest College. Yeah, Woodcrest College. Being a PE teacher out there, I was also working still at Jindalee in the gym. Yeah. And I was also being a triathlete. And then Steve Nance, who was at Jindalee, he'd set up FitNance. And he said, "Hey, Chris, I've got an opportunity over here. Do you want to come and work for me over here, teaching Cert 3, Cert 4 fitness, and while I do some other stuff?" So I said, "Oh, I'm in." Yeah. And so I moved my business from Jindalee, the gym there, to FitNance in New Farm. And I suppose that developed to a role where, Steve got a job over at Fulham Football Club to coach them, so he had to move overseas and needed someone to run his business. So he said, "Well, Chris, you in for it?" So I said, "Okay, done."
Wow.
So I had to pause my teaching and took that up full time. And in that role, that was I learned a lot of stuff there. I had to run a business. Yeah. And I didn't have much. I had a little bit of experience, but not a lot of experience at that.
That's cool. And I'm also kind of curious at the time, how hard or how easy was it for you to quit? Like whenever I'm making decisions, I have a lot of hesitation, like, oh, should I, I don't know if I like it that much, or what I'm leaving behind. So was it like, oh man, I'm full on, I'm done with teaching for the moment? No,
I resist change, I suppose. Yeah. The older I get, the better at change I think I'm getting. But particularly when I was young, I was very reluctant to change, and so there was a lot of thinking, and I suppose what helped is I was in the Education Queensland system, and they allowed you to put your teaching on pause for many years, up to 7 years, I think.
Wow.
So I had that. I always had that safety net. If I don't like this, I can go back and be a teacher again if it doesn't work.
Oh, that's
but cool. I never went back.
Yeah.
And if I look at it, I'm grateful for that opportunity, and grateful for where I am.
Yeah. And do you remember that last semester that you taught? Was it very emotional for you, or any kind of specific memories?
Not really, no. But again, I'm really like my story with Leary, and I'm still in touch with some of those students that were in my class, and I still see them out there doing amazing things in the world. And the fact I'd like to take that as a pat on the back, in that they do still talk to me, and
they still want to be in contact with me.
Still want to be in contact with me. Yeah, I think that's
amazing. Says a lot about you.
I think that just generally teachers, I think, can have a big impact on the world.
Yeah, that's cool. And then how did you transition into fit education? How did that come about?
Well, I was I was lucky there. I had Steve, who was the fitness guru, and Pat McGuire as the businessman. They owned, and Barry Cox, they owned Fit Nance. Yeah. And Pat and Steve bought Barry out at one stage, and I was the manager. Yeah. And then Pat bought Steve out, so it was Pat, and Pat put me on as a part owner as well at that time. So I was managing and part owning, and then at one stage, Pat said, I'm out.
Oh.
Do you want to buy this business? I said, well, okay, I'll have a go at this. And that was a very confronting conversation, though. Then Karen, Pat said, well, the process is going to be, we're going to go down to a business valuer, and they're going to value the business, and then you own half of it, so it's half of what it's valued at.
Yeah.
And so off we went to this big meeting in the big city, and they valued the business, and it was way more than I was expecting.
Oh,
it was $80,000 that I had to come up with, and Pat said, okay, well, I'll guarantee your loan for that if you like.
Nice.
And so, it was scary at the time, and I was very resistant to change at the time, but I went ahead with it and paid off the loan, and now I'm owner of a business, which is good. Yeah,
that's kind of cool. So you said it was called Fitnance, and then you changed it to Fit Education. Yeah,
so what happened is in 2015, so we moved from New Farm to East Brisbane, and we set up our shed in East Brisbane, which was amazing. It was great. It was this big warehouse, and we had all sorts of great people coming in, and we had a gym, and we had the RTO aspect of it, and it was going really well. And then we had a fire. So it was terrible. What happened is the neighbour's place, or Energex was in there doing their stuff, and it burnt down. The neighbours caught on fire and took us out.
Damn.
And so, I suppose so what happened there, I had some soul searching to do and learned some more business lessons then, in that I didn't have my insurance policies worked out properly. So there was some big learnings in life there. And so we moved over to where we are now, and at the time we changed the name because we were getting calls on Fitnance sounds like finance. We'd get people phoning up, what about, can we get some loans? So we said, well, let's just make it as obvious as we can. And what do? Fit Education. So we changed the name to Fit Education.
Do you know why it was called Fitnance?
Well, Steve Nance set it up, so it was Fit Nance. Yeah.
Oh, what a name.
Yeah. And I learned a lot off Steve, and I learned a lot off Pat as well. Probably some of the Pat. He was the businessman, and I probably wasn't so good at business, so he taught me some good business lessons that I probably didn't like at the time, but look back on it now and think, he was probably right. I needed to pay some bills and do some more invoicing and do those hard business decisions.
Oh, damn. Yeah, and how long has it been since you've been running Fit Education?
2010, I think that happened. Whoa. So 11 years now, and going. And so since then we burnt down, we relocated, and we've done some good government. We've got some good government. I suppose improved our status. We've got international school now. We've got vet student loan funding. And we've got a lot of extra courses on scope and some really good projects. So,
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, and how has it? How many people was it in the beginning, and how many people is it now? Like, what has the growth been like?
Well, at the start it was me.
Just you.
And then we had a prac student, Tanya, who worked with us, and we put Tanya on full time eventually. Yeah. So there's two of us.
I didn't expect it to be that tiny.
And then we just kept growing, I suppose, and that's how I generally put my staff on. Was we'd introduce a new person in, and they were generally my prac students, so people we were training or people who had worked with us, and say, here, we've got some extra work. Do you want to do some work with us? I suppose at the peak we had 5 or probably 6 full-time staff and another 6 part-time staff. And that was just, the peak was when we burnt down. So we were, which was a bit of a shame. And anyway, after that, when we burnt down, we had to restructure a bit of stuff and make some changes. So we took out the commercial gym component and decided to focus on the education side of things.
Yeah. Oh, damn.
And that was a big decision, because the gym was, everyone loves the gym, it's the fun bit.
Yeah.
But if I looked at financially from a business point of view, it didn't pay. It was lost money, and that was propped up by the education. So that was a hard decision to make, and but it needed to be done. You're studying business, so or you've studied business. You know you got to make the hard calls sometimes.
Yeah, I guess if the gym isn't really generating that much revenue compared to the education, then if you're short on finances, something has to go.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh, damn. Yeah. So how did you sort of, what was the sort of like coping point when the business burnt down? Like, did you ever have that thought like, oh, maybe I should just leave it, maybe this is a sign from God?
At the time, no, I was probably resilient. No, I'm going to get this damn thing back up.
Yeah.
And so I probably never thought about that. There are times, don't get me wrong, there are times when I think, what the hell's the point of all this? There's times when you think, oh, geez, so many problems, what is it worth it all? But at the time after the fire, I was more determined than ever to to rebuild, I suppose, and do it. And I was really lucky. I had great support from lots and lots of people. All my friends stepped up and helped out in that process. And people came from everywhere saying, "Can I help you? Can we do it?" I had people come and help paint this and clean this, and because where we're sitting now used to be a poker machine room.
Oh, very
and
nice.
It needed to be painted and completely redone. So everyone helped in and had other friends come in and mentor me on business and help with business, and so I'm very grateful to all those people that helped out through that.
Yeah, that's cool. Did you have to loan a lot of money to be able to rebuild it again?
No, I was fine. Yeah, the insurance obviously didn't step up, but again, one of my really good clients stepped in and helped me, advised me with how to handle that insurance claim, and helped me get the maximum amount of money we could. And then since then, we've obviously checked our insurance policies and have got a better insurance. But no, I never wanted to give up. And no, I didn't have to. We were in a financially very good position when we did burn down, so I had enough reserves to.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and I suppose you're in the business. I'm fairly conservative as a business person. I always like to have some buffer there to fall back on.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. And then, so tell me more about the times when you think, like, what's the point of all this? Because, like, it's been 10 years, and, like, in terms of frequency, do you think it's, like, 5 times a year, or is that a bit too much, or?
No, probably 5 times a year is a good guess.
Yeah.
Probably. It's when there's, you hear Sunday night, and there's a class starting tomorrow, and you're putting the bins out and doing the class timetable and doing all that stuff, and you say, what's the point of this? Why I'm doing all this stuff? They're probably the times, or when you get kicked in the teeth. The government often moves the goalposts on you, and you've spent a year working on something to those goalposts. When they get moved to somewhere else, you think, what's the point? Why? And so I did. At times, I've deliberately set my business up so that there's a number of different income streams, so that if something does move, the goalposts do get moved, then it's resilient enough. There's other things that can step in.
That's good.
So that's a good learning, I think. And at one stage, I remember we were very reliant on some government funding, and they moved the goalposts, and that took half of our income out. And so, we were quite exposed. So, we changed that. That's the next 10 years I've spent having a wide variety of income streams, which is good.
That's cool.
Yeah,
and then so Chris, what is the point? How do you sort of when you ask that question, do you sort of, how do you sort of answer yourself in some ways?
That's a hard question, Karen, but
Yeah.
I think that when I kick the bucket, I'd just like to be thought of as a good person who had a red hot crack.
Yeah.
Yeah, and had fun.
Yeah.
And I think that, I suppose I can see, I enjoy all the things that I do at the moment. There's some things I enjoy more than others.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but everyone has to do stuff they don't like doing sometimes. But I think that I can see that working with the people that I get to teach and work with, they can go and make a really good influence and spread fitness and health, which I'm really passionate about.
Yeah.
They can go and have a big influence on other people, and so I think that's what I'd like to be. That's the point. That's the purpose, is to have continue to spread the good word of health and fitness, and be a good person, do the right thing by everyone.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm also kind of curious, digging more into about like the work of a CEO. Yeah, so if we were to think of like a sort of pie chart, like how would you, like, what percentage is like, I don't know, paperwork, what percentage is teaching, training, and like what is the sort of division?
Good question, Karen.
You're going to have to need to think about that.
CEO, no, well, I suppose there's probably what should be done as a CEO and what I do as a CEO, and they're probably quite different. And we're a fairly small business. We are a small business.
Yeah, how many people here?
We've got 3 full-time staff, and then we've got 4 or 5 part-time staff. Yeah. So we are small. So I suppose being small, you need to be a jack of all trades still. And the CEO, if I need to take the bins out, I take the bins out. If I need to teach a class, I teach a class. If I need to train someone in the gym, I train someone in the gym. And I think it's that variety that I really enjoy, actually, Karen. I do, I've got no problems cleaning the toilets or doing the dishes or whatever those jobs are. Sometimes that's probably to my detriment, in that it takes you away from probably the most important things. Yeah. So probably your question, what's the CEO's job? It's to make sure the business can run and make sure that everyone else can do their job properly. And so, I've got to make sure that the bills get paid. I've got to make sure that the RTO quality aspects are taken care of, and I need to make sure that my staff are able to do their job and able to do their job well, and they've got all the tools they need to. They're probably the most important jobs, and if you take your eye off any of those, then the business starts to suffer. Yeah.
What's your favourite part about being CEO?
I still like the sport and fitness side of things. I suppose, and I have to be very aware of that you can't be. I like training people, and I have to stop training people so that I concentrate on running the business. You need to work on your business rather than in your businesses. Some famous, you probably taught me that, or you probably learnt that at business school.
I wish
and
I'd taught me that.
You would tell me that, I'm sure.
Yeah, so I'm kind of curious. So if what you like most is working in the business, have you ever thought about, like, if you would able to, quotes, hire another CEO to do the boring admin kind of work for you? Wouldn't that give you a better life?
Yes, it would, Karen. And one day, that's the dream, is someone else does the hard work, and I get to do the fun parts of it, I suppose. I don't think our business is quite there yet to do that. But down the track, that's what I'd like to think where I'd like to think it's heading.
But I guess it would be quite hard to find someone who knows it as well as you do.
Yeah, well, there's so many moving parts, but I think one of the other important things in business is that no one's irreplaceable. So anyone can do anything. Anyone can do anything. One of the hard things I think about having your own business is the attachment, and will other people do it as well as you do it?
Yes.
And it's one of those things. You need to empower and enable other people to do parts and things, but sometimes it's the training process of other people, teaching other people stuff. Sometimes it's easy just for you to do it.
Yeah.
If you do it though, you're setting yourself up for failure because you're not
Yeah.
teaching someone else to do it.
Yeah, I guess it's a very sort of long-term versus short-term kind of thinking.
Yeah, and I probably, I'm not an expert at that. I probably end up doing stuff when I probably should get other people to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's hopefully I learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, one of the other things that I value in being my position is that I've got lots of other great, successful people around me that help and give advice. Like I'm always asking my staff or my wife or friends about what would you do? What do you do here? How do you handle this? And I'm lucky that I always get good advice.
Yeah.
I make the decision in the end, but I get good advice from other people to help make those decisions. So I think that's pretty important.
Yeah, and having that like support network. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think one of my favourite quotes, actually, Karen, I'm going on a separate thing, is you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with. And
good.
I think that if you hang out with, I'm lucky. I've got to hang out with lots of great, successful people, and I've always sought out. I think successful, or my friends are all successful in their own right, and so I think that's made my life easier and allowed me to do whatever I've done.
Yeah, that's cool. And also wanted to touch on imposter syndrome. How do you feel about that? How do you sort of like deal with it, manage it?
Tell me a bit more about imposter syndrome before I talk about something that's probably wrong, Karen.
All good. So imposter syndrome is like when you feel like it's almost like being a little bit like you feel like you're inexperienced, you feel like maybe you don't deserve it, or maybe you feel like it's sort of almost like feeling like out of your league, because you said that in the beginning where like, you weren't really sure like how to run the business, and then like suddenly like, you were the business owner, and then especially it's a lot harder like when there are people who look up to you to ask you what to do, especially when you have full-time staff. So how do you sort of manage it, like feeling like out of your depth a bit, because
I think there's never a time when I've thought I can't do this. It's never. I'm always willing to have a go, and I think that's a strength of mine. I'll have a go. Yeah. But when I don't know, I'm not afraid to ask other people how to do stuff, and again, if that person doesn't know, they may know someone that knows, and I'll phone that person up to ask them. And I've always have to do that. So I suppose I ask questions is when I don't know how to do stuff. I've never thought that I can't do something. I'll have a go, and I'll try my best. So I hope I've answered your question there, Karen. I'll have a go and ask questions. Don't think too much about it. Do the best you can, and ask questions. And anything I do, I like to do the best I can. So I like to think that's better than it's worth it.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, because sometimes when I'm doing this podcast, major imposter syndrome, like especially when I like interview some people and they have some recommendations, and then when I start looking at their profile and they're like famous, and then I'm like, I don't even really know what I'm doing, and I'm just making it up as I go. So I hope that they don't have like a high expectation of me. One of the people, they're like, they were like a little bit like disappointed I didn't have a studio. Well, because they thought like, I was like, no, sorry, I just like record on my phone.
No.
And so, but that's kind of, just good attitude. Maybe don't overthink it.
I think it's awesome what you're doing. I think it's really great. And Katarina was asking, what are you doing? A podcast too, Karen? And Katarina listened to your podcast and said, great job. Wow, have a look at her having a go. And that's it. We think it's
she
great.
Was so supportive.
Having a red hot crack is what it's about. And I'm sure that as you keep doing it, your follower base grows, and then all of a sudden there you are being a business entrepreneur who's doing it. That's one thing I'm always amazed at with all the people we work with is where they end up, and I think that's that hard work and having a go is the key. And talked about me, but talk about you. Yeah, you're having a red hot crack, and I'm sure you'll go a long way, Karen.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah. So we're nearly around the end. So, could ask you that deep question. So, Chris, what do you think the meaning of life is?
What do I think the meaning of life is? I say that to buy me some time, Karen.
Yeah, I know, right?
Well, one of my favourite sayings, Karen, is champions train, losers complain.
Yeah.
And I suppose reading into that, I think that's some meaning of life, is to have a red hot crack and you go and be a good person. And I suppose that's what champions train, losers complain is about. Go and get in and do it, and do the right thing, and along the way have a good time.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds good. Yeah. And what would be your perfect day in the life for you?
Perfect. Oh, good. My perfect day is, and it's it's not far off what I do at the moment, minus a bit of the hard decisions. But I every morning I wake up and go training. First thing, I can't train every day. If I'm going to teach fitness, I need to practice what I preach, Karen. I'm all about that. And so I go training, whatever it is. At the moment, it's lots of bike riding and gym. Always try and do something. So I go out on the bike, and then I have breakfast at home. Then I try and be in here at 7.
Yeah.
If my perfect day, I'd probably push that out to 9.
Yeah.
Do office. My perfect day would be involved training lots of people. I'd like to do some training in here. Probably have some chats. Sit around, drink some coffee, have some chats. Read a book.
Yeah.
Finish 3 o'clock. I think I'd still always like some work, but probably the work that I'd prefer to do rather than doing CEO, business, government stuff, government pushing paper around the office, is that it would be more. It would look more like creative writing, fitness resources, that type of thing, as well as I'd still like the hands-on tools.
Yeah.
Knock off at 3, go training again, hang out with my wife, and eat a healthy dinner.
Yeah.
Maybe have a couple drinks and watch a movie.
Yeah.
Go to bed.
That's cool.
Perfect day. And so I'm not far off it, Karen. So I'm very grateful for where I'm at.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. And it's just really that simple sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, when you say that word simple, I think it is, and life is pretty simple. And when I've gone wrong, it's because I've made it too complicated. It is simple. It's have a go and be good. And lift your weights, eat your vegetables, get your sleep. Have good friends around you.
Yeah, that's the recipe for a good life. Yeah, so we're pretty much at the end of the podcast, but I have to ask you, how has your podcast experience been? Any surprises?
You asked a couple of hard questions, but you worded me up a little bit earlier, so I didn't really drop the ball too much, I don't think. It's been great. You've made it really easy, and I think, Karen, one of your strengths is you're easy to talk to. You ask my questions, really? And you got me talking for an hour. So
we did it. Yeah. So let's say bye now.
Bye.
Bye.